the power of feeling, unlocking your inner reality. There is a hidden power within you, silent, invisible, yet more influential than anything you can see or touch, and it is shaping your life right now. Not your circumstances, not your past, not even your thoughts alone, but the way you feel. Every moment beneath the surface, your emotions are sending signals, creating patterns, and quietly building the reality you wake up to each day. You may believe life is happening to you, that you are reacting to events beyond your control. But what if the truth is far more powerful? What if your inner world is not a reflection of your life, but the very cause of it? Today, you are about to discover that feeling is not just something you experience. It is something you wield. And once you understand how to direct it, once you learn to embody the emotions of the life you desire, before it even appears, you will realize that the reality you've been waiting for has been waiting for you to feel it first. There is a quiet truth that most people overlook, even though it governs nearly every experience of their lives. Feeling is not just a reaction, it is a force. It is the unseen current beneath every thought, every decision, every outcome. While the world teaches you to focus on actions, strategies, and external conditions, it rarely tells you that the real power lies deeper, in the emotional state you consistently carry within you. This is the secret force shaping your reality, whether you are aware of it or not. Think about how most people live. They wake up, observe their circumstances, and then allow those circumstances to dictate how they feel. If things go well, they feel happy. If things go wrong, they feel discouraged. In this way, they become emotional followers of their environment, constantly reacting, constantly adjusting, constantly surrendering their power to what is happening outside of them. But this way of living keeps them trapped in cycles. Because if your feelings are controlled by your reality, then your reality will never change. You are simply reinforcing what already exists. The truth is the opposite of what you've been taught. Your feelings are not meant to follow your life. Your life is meant to follow your feelings. Every feeling you experience carries a frequency, a signal, a kind of instruction that is sent into your deeper mind. And your subconscious mind does not question or argue. It accepts what you consistently feel as truth. It doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. It only responds to the emotional intensity and repetition of your inner state. This means that when you repeatedly feel fear, you are impressing fear as your reality. When you dwell in doubt, you are reinforcing limitation. But when you embody confidence, when you feel abundance, when you live in the emotional state of certainty, those feelings begin to take root within you and eventually express themselves outwardly. This is why two people can have the same circumstances but live completely different lives. One feels empowered, the other feels defeated. One expects opportunity, the other expects struggle. And over time, their lives reflect those expectations, not because of luck, but because of feeling. Feeling is the filter through which reality is formed. But here is where your power becomes undeniable. You are not a prisoner of your current emotional state. You are the one who can choose it. You can decide, in this very moment, to shift how you feel, even if nothing around you has changed. You can step into the emotional experience of the life you desire before you ever see it physically. This is not pretending. This is not denial. This is creation at its deepest level. Because when you deliberately generate a feeling within you, when you truly embody it, you are sending a clear and consistent message to your subconscious mind. This is real. This is now. This is who I am. And once that message is accepted, it begins to shape everything else. Your thoughts begin to align with that feeling. Your actions begin to reflect it. Your perception of the world begins to shift. And gradually, your outer reality reorganizes itself to match your inner state. This is why feeling is called the secret force. It works quietly, invisibly, but with absolute precision. However, this power requires awareness and discipline. It is easy to feel something for a few moments, But the real transformation happens through consistency. The world will test you. It will show you conditions that contradict what you are trying to feel. It will tempt you to fall back into old emotional patterns. And in those moments, most people give up. They look at their current reality and say, "This isn't working." But what they don't realize is that they stopped too soon. They allowed what they saw to override what they felt. To truly harness this force, you must reverse that pattern. You must become loyal to your chosen feeling, regardless of what appears around you. You must trust that what you feel within is more real, more powerful, and more influential than anything you see outside. Because the outer world is always a delayed reflection. It is the past made visible. But your feeling is the present moment of creation. So if you want to change your life, you don't begin by changing your circumstances. You begin by changing your feeling. You step into the emotional state of the person you want to become. You feel the success before it arrives. You feel the love before it is shown. You feel the abundance before it is visible. And you hold that feeling, not occasionally, but consistently, until it becomes natural, until it becomes your new normal. At that point, it is no longer something you are trying to do. It becomes who you are. And once it becomes who you are, your reality has no choice but to reflect it. This is the secret force within you. It has always been there, quietly shaping your experiences. But now you are aware of it. Now you can direct it. Now you can use it intentionally. And the moment you do, everything begins to change. Not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because you do. There is a fundamental truth that, once fully understood, changes the way you see everything. Your outer world is not the cause of your inner experience. Your inner world is the cause of everything you see. What you live each day is not random, not accidental, and not purely shaped by external forces. It is, in many ways, a reflection, a mirror, of what you have been consistently holding within yourself. Most people are conditioned to believe the opposite. They believe that life happens first, and then they respond emotionally. If something good happens, they feel joy. If something bad happens, they feel pain. In this model, the outer world is in control, and the inner world simply reacts. But this way of living keeps a person stuck because it places all power outside of them. It turns them into observers of life rather than creators of it. But what if the sequence is reversed? What if the inner world comes first, and the outer world follows? Your inner world is made up of your beliefs, your assumptions, your dominant emotions, and the images you carry about yourself and your life. It is the space where you silently decide what is possible, what is likely, and what is true for you. And whether you realize it or not, you are constantly feeding this inner world with thoughts and feelings. Over time, these repeated inner patterns form a kind of blueprint, a script that your life begins to follow. If you consistently feel unworthy, your life will arrange itself in ways that confirm that feeling. If you carry a deep sense of lack, you will continue to experience situations that reinforce it. Not because the world is against you, but because your inner world is projecting a certain reality, and your outer world is responding to it. This is why change feels so difficult for many people. They try to alter their external conditions without addressing the internal cause. They change jobs, relationships, environments, but carry the same beliefs, the same fears, the same emotional patterns within them. And so, no matter where they go, they recreate the same experiences in different forms. The scenery changes, but the story remains the same. Real transformation begins when you shift the focus inward. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What within me is creating this?" This is not about blame, it is about awareness. Because once you recognize that your inner state is the source, you also realize that you have the power to change it. And this is where everything begins to shift. Your imagination becomes your creative tool. Your feelings become your guiding force. You begin to consciously choose the version of yourself you want to embody, not based on your current circumstances, but based on your desired reality. You start to see yourself as confident, successful, loved, abundant, not because it is already visible, but because you are willing to accept it as true within. At first, this may feel unnatural. Your outer world may still show you evidence of the old state. It may try to convince you that nothing has changed. But remember, the outer world is always a reflection of past inner states. It takes time to adjust. It takes persistence. What matters is not what you see right now. It is what you continue to hold within. As you consistently return to your chosen inner state, something powerful happens. Your mind begins to accept it as your new identity. Your emotional baseline begins to shift. You start to think, act, and respond differently, not by force but naturally. And as this inner transformation stabilizes, your outer world begins to reorganize itself. Opportunities appear that match your new state. People respond to you differently. Situations begin to align in ways that once seemed impossible. And it all happens not because you chased it, but because you became it, internally. This is the true meaning of creation. It is not about forcing outcomes or controlling every detail of your life. It is about aligning your inner world so clearly and so consistently that your outer world has no choice but to reflect it. But there is a responsibility that comes with this understanding. You can no longer afford to live unconsciously. You can no longer let your mind drift into negative assumptions and expect a positive life. Every thought you dwell on, every feeling you entertain, is contributing to your inner world, and therefore shaping your future reality. So you must become selective. Selective about what you believe, selective about what you focus on, selective about how you feel, not in a rigid or fearful way, but in an empowered and intentional way. Because you now understand that your inner world is not just a private space, it is the origin of everything you experience. When you master your inner world, you no longer feel at the mercy of life. You no longer wait for things to change before you feel better. Instead, you change within and allow life to catch up, and it always does. Because the outer world cannot defy the inner world forever. It must eventually reflect it. So if you want a new life, don't start by trying to fix what is outside. Start by transforming what is within. Build the reality in your mind. Feel it as real. Live in that inner experience as often as you can, because that inner world is not imaginary. It is foundational, and once it is firmly established, your outer world will rise to meet it. There is a powerful principle that quietly shapes every outcome in your life, whether you recognize it or not. You do not experience what you merely wish for. You experience what you assume to be true. And the strongest form of assumption is not intellectual. It is emotional. It is not what you say with your words, but what you confirm with your feeling that becomes your reality. Most people misunderstand the nature of belief. They think belief is something they consciously decide, something they can force through repetition or logic. But true belief is revealed in how you feel. You can say, I am successful, yet feel insecure. You can affirm, I am loved, yet feel rejected. In these moments, your words and your feelings are in conflict. And it is always the feeling that wins. Because feeling is the language of the deeper mind, the place where assumptions are accepted as truth and then expressed into your life. Assumption, then, is not about convincing yourself mentally. It is about embodying something emotionally until it feels natural, familiar, and real. Every day, you are living in a state of assumption. You assume how people will treat you. You assume how situations will unfold. You assume what you are capable of, what you deserve, and what is possible for you. And these assumptions are not always spoken. They are felt. They exist beneath the surface, quietly directing your expectations and influencing your reactions. If you assume things will go wrong, you carry a subtle tension, a quiet doubt, a guarded energy, and that emotional state affects how you think, how you act, and ultimately, what you experience. But if you assume things will work out, there is a calm confidence, a sense of ease, a natural openness. And from that state, You move differently, you see differently, and life begins to respond differently. This is the power of emotional assumption. It shapes your reality from the inside out. Now, here is where your true creative power begins. You can consciously choose your assumption. You do not have to accept the assumptions you have been conditioned into. You do not have to carry the emotional patterns that were built from past experiences. You can decide, deliberately, to assume a new reality, not by forcing thoughts, but by stepping into the feeling of that reality. What does it feel like to already have what you desire? What does it feel like to be the person you want to become? These questions are not meant to be answered logically. They are meant to be felt deeply. If you desire success, don't just think about it. Feel the certainty of it. Feel the confidence, the stability, the sense of achievement. If you desire love, don't just imagine it. Feel the warmth, the security, the connection. Let that emotion fill you as if it is already yours. Because in that moment, you are no longer hoping, you are assuming. And when you assume something with feeling, your subconscious mind accepts it as your current reality. It does not ask whether it is visible yet. It does not question how it will happen. It simply begins to organize your thoughts, your behaviors, and your perceptions around that assumption. And over time, your external world begins to reflect it. But here is the challenge. Your current reality may not immediately support your new assumption. It may show you evidence of the old state. It may trigger old emotions, old doubts, old habits. And in those moments, you are faced with a choice. Do you return to the old assumption, or do you persist in the new one? Most people switch back. They look at what is happening and say, "This isn't working," because they are using the outer world as proof. But the outer world is always delayed. It reflects past assumptions, not present ones. If you judge your progress based on what you see too soon, you will abandon the very state that was beginning to create change. Despise is what turns assumption into reality. You must remain emotionally aligned with your chosen state, even when there is no visible evidence. You must continue to feel as if it is already true, not occasionally, but consistently. And as you do, something remarkable begins to happen. The new assumption starts to feel natural. It becomes less like something you are trying to create, and more like something you simply are. At that point, the shift is complete internally. And once the shift is complete within, the outer world must follow. This is not about controlling every detail of your life. It is about establishing a dominant emotional state that reflects your desired reality. It is about living from the end, not striving toward it. Because when you truly feel that something is already yours, you stop chasing it. You embody it. And what you embody, you become. So be mindful of what you are assuming, not just with your thoughts but with your feelings. Because every moment you are either reinforcing an old reality or creating a new one. Every emotion you entertain is either confirming limitation or expanding possibility. You are always assuming something. The question is, are you assuming by default or by design? Because when you begin to assume deliberately, when you align your emotions with the reality you choose, you step into your role as the creator of your experience. And from that place, life is no longer something you wait for, it becomes something you shape. There is a subtle but powerful truth that governs your entire life experience. You do not live based on what you want, you live based on what you accept as true. And what you accept as true is not defined by your words or even your thoughts alone. It is defined by what you feel. Your emotional state is the clearest indicator of your deepest assumptions. And those assumptions are what shape your reality. Most people believe that if they repeat something enough times, affirmations, positive statements, intentions, it will eventually become real. But repetition without emotional conviction is like speaking into an empty space. The real shift happens when your feeling aligns with your desire, when you stop trying to convince yourself and instead begin to experience it internally as if it is already true. This is what assumption truly is. It is not forcing belief, it is entering a state. Every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are assuming something about your life. You assume how your day will go. You assume how people see you. You assume whether opportunities will come or pass you by. These assumptions are not always spoken, but they are always felt. And it is those feelings that quietly guide your actions, your reactions, and your expectations. If you walk into a situation assuming rejection, even if you say nothing, your energy carries hesitation. Your body language shifts, your tone changes, and often, the outcome reflects that assumption. Not because the world is against you, but because your emotional state has already set the tone for what follows. On the other hand, if you enter with the assumption of acceptance, there is ease, openness, and confidence, and that state invites a completely different response. This is how powerful emotional assumption is. It shapes your experience before anything even happens. Now, here is the key. You are not limited to the assumptions you have developed in the past. You can choose a new assumption, but you must do it through feeling, not force. Ask yourself, what would it feel like if your desire were already fulfilled? Not in theory, but in reality. If you already had the success you seek, how would you carry yourself? If you were already loved the way you desire, how would you feel within? If you already had the freedom, the security, the confidence, what would that emotional state be like? This is not imagination for entertainment. This is imagination as creation. When you allow yourself to feel that state fully, when you step into it as if it is present now, you are sending a powerful message to your subconscious mind. This is my reality. And your subconscious mind, which does not question or judge, begins to accept it. It begins to reorganize your inner world around that assumption. Your thoughts begin to align with it. Your focus begins to reflect it. Your behavior begins to express it. And over time, your external reality begins to mirror it. But here is where most people struggle. They look for immediate proof. They feel it for a short time, and then they check their environment. When they don't see instant change, doubt creeps in. And that doubt is also a feeling, one that contradicts the new assumption. In that moment, they unknowingly cancel the very state they were trying to build. You cannot plant a seed and dig it up every day to check if it is growing. Assumption requires trust. It requires persistence. It requires you to remain emotionally loyal to your desired state, even when your current reality shows you something different. Because what you see now is the result of past assumptions, not the ones you are creating in this moment. If you want a different result, you must hold a different feeling long enough for it to take root. This is where discipline becomes your greatest ally. Not discipline in action alone, but discipline in emotion. The ability to return to your chosen state again and again, regardless of distractions, doubts, or external evidence. The ability to say, even if I don't see it yet, I know what I feel, and I choose to remain here. And as you do this consistently, something shifts. The new feeling stops being something you practice and becomes something you naturally inhabit. It becomes familiar. It becomes comfortable. It becomes your identity. And once a feeling becomes your identity, it is no longer an effort. It is your truth. At that point, your outer world has no choice but to align with it. Because your life can only reflect who you believe yourself to be at the deepest level. And that belief is always expressed through feeling. So be aware of what you are assuming each day, not just in your thoughts, but in your emotional state. Because every moment you are either reinforcing the old or creating the new. Every feeling is a vote for the reality you are moving toward. You are always assuming something. Make sure it is something that serves you. One of the most challenging yet transformative principles you will ever understand is this. If you want to create a new reality, you must stop being emotionally controlled by your current one. This does not mean ignoring your responsibilities or pretending your life does not exist. It means refusing to let what you see dictate what you feel. Because the moment your feelings are tied to your present circumstances, you unknowingly lock yourself into repeating them. Most people are deeply attached to what is happening around them. They check their environment constantly for proof of success, proof of love, proof of progress. And when they don't see what they want, they feel discouraged, anxious, or doubtful. In that moment, they return to the same emotional state that created their current situation in the first place. Without realizing it, they reinforce the very reality they wish to escape. This is why detachment is not about indifference. It is about freedom. It is the ability to stand in your current circumstances without allowing them to define your inner state. It is the discipline to say, "This is what I see, but this is not what I choose to feel." Because what you feel is what you continue to create. And if you want something different, your feeling must come from your desired reality, not your present one. Think of your current reality as a mirror. It is reflecting what has already been established within you, your past beliefs, your past emotions, your past assumptions. But a mirror does not create, it reflects. If you try to change the reflection without changing what stands before it, nothing will shift. In the same way, if you keep reacting emotionally to what is already visible, you remain aligned with the past. Detachment is the moment you stop arguing with the mirror. It is the moment you stop saying, "Why is this happening?" and start saying, "This is only a reflection. It does not control me." And from that place, you turn your attention inward, where true creation begins. This is not always easy. Your senses are powerful. What you see, hear, and experience can feel very real and very convincing. If your bank account shows lack, if your relationships feel strained, if your environment reflects limitation, it is natural to react. But reacting keeps you bound. Reacting keeps you emotionally invested in the old story. To detach is to rise above that reaction. It is to observe without absorbing, to acknowledge without accepting as final, to remain centered in the feeling of your desired reality, even when your current circumstances seem to contradict it. For example, if you desire abundance but your current situation shows scarcity, detachment means you do not allow that scarcity to define your emotional state. You do not sink into fear or lack. Instead, you return, again and again, to the feeling of abundance. You feel secure, you feel supported, you feel as though everything is already working in your favor. Not because you see it yet, but because you understand that what you feel now is what will shape what you see next. This is where your power lies, not in controlling circumstances, but in choosing your state. And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. At first, you may find yourself slipping back into old reactions. That is natural. You have been conditioned to respond that way. But each time you notice it, you have a choice. You can either follow the old emotional pattern, or you can gently bring yourself back to your chosen state. Over time, this becomes a new habit, a new way of being. You begin to feel less affected by what happens around you. Not because you don't care, but because you understand that your inner state is more important than any temporary condition. You begin to trust that what you are cultivating within will eventually express itself outwardly. And with that trust comes a sense of calm, a sense of stability, a sense of quiet confidence. This is true detachment, not coldness, not avoidance, but inner certainty. And something remarkable happens when you reach this state. When you are no longer desperate for change, when you are no longer reacting to what is, you create space. You release resistance. You allow your new reality to emerge naturally, without force, because desperation pushes things away, fear delays them, doubt disrupts them, but calm, aligned feeling allows them. Detachment is not giving up on your desire. It is giving up the need to see it immediately. It is trusting the process. It is knowing that what you are building within is more real than what you currently see. So instead of asking, "Why hasn't it happened yet?" you begin to say, "It is already mine. I just remain in the feeling of it." And that shift changes everything, because now you are no longer waiting. You are embodying. You are no longer chasing. You are allowing. You are no longer reacting. You are creating. Your current reality may still look the same for a while, but you are no longer the same person within it. And that is the beginning of true transformation, because once you detach from what is, and fully align with what you choose to feel, what is will have no choice but to change. There is a moment in every person's journey where they begin to understand the power of feeling, but understanding alone is not enough. The real transformation happens when that feeling is sustained, repeated, and lived in consistently. Because one moment of alignment can inspire you, but persistence in that feeling is what changes your life. Most people experience short bursts of belief. They feel motivated, they feel certain, they step into the emotional state of their desired reality, and for a brief moment, everything feels possible. But then something happens. They look at their current situation. They notice that nothing has changed yet. Doubt begins to creep in, and slowly they return to their old emotional patterns. In doing so, they interrupt the very process they had begun. What they don't realize is that manifestation is not about intensity. It is about consistency. Your inner world does not change because you felt something strongly once. It changes because you feel something repeatedly until it becomes natural, until it becomes familiar, until it becomes your dominant state. And once it becomes your dominant state, your outer reality has no choice but to reflect it. Think of it like this. Every feeling you hold is like planting a seed. But a seed does not grow the moment it is planted. It requires time, stability, and the right environment. If you plant it today and dig it up tomorrow to check if it has grown, you disrupt the process. In the same way, if you step into a new emotional state, but constantly question it, doubt it, or abandon it, you prevent it from taking root. Tenets means you stay in the feeling, regardless of what you see. It means that even when your external world shows no evidence of change, you do not waver. You do not return to fear, doubt, or frustration. Instead, you remain grounded in the emotional experience of your desired reality. You continue to feel as though it is already done, already yours, already real. This is not denial. It is discipline. It is the discipline to choose your inner state over your outer conditions. It is the discipline to return to your chosen feeling again and again, even when it feels easier to fall back into old habits. Because those old habits are familiar, but they are also what created the life you are trying to change. If you want a different result, you must hold a different state long enough for it to solidify. And here is the beautiful part. The more you persist, the easier it becomes. At first, it may feel like effort. You may have to remind yourself constantly. You may catch your mind drifting and bring it back. You may feel moments of doubt and consciously shift your focus again. But with time, this new feeling begins to settle. It begins to feel normal. It becomes your default. And once it becomes your default, everything changes. You no longer have to try to feel it. It is simply who you are. Your thoughts naturally align with it. Your reactions reflect it. Your expectations support it. And from that place, your outer world begins to respond in ways that match your inner state. Opportunities begin to appear that resonate with your new identity. People respond to you differently because your energy has changed. Situations unfold in ways that feel aligned rather than forced. And often, it happens so naturally that you don't even notice when the shift occurs. You simply realize one day that your reality is no longer the same. This is the power of persistence. But there is one more thing you must understand. Persistence does not mean forcing or struggling. It does not mean trying to control every thought or suppress every negative feeling. It means gently, consistently returning to your chosen state. It means allowing yourself to feel it, even if only for a few moments at a time, and gradually expanding that duration. It is not about perfection, it is about direction. Even if you slip, even if you doubt, even if you react, what matters is that you come back, you realign, you choose again. Because every time you return to that feeling, you strengthen it, you reinforce it, you make it more real within you, and eventually it becomes so strong, so stable, so natural, that it cannot help but express itself outwardly. At that point, manifestation is no longer something you are waiting for. It is something that is unfolding. So do not be discouraged if you do not see immediate results. Do not measure your progress by what is visible today. Measure it by how consistently you are able to return to your chosen feeling. Because that is where the real work is happening. That is where the shift is being created. Stay with it, trust it, live in it, because what you persist in emotionally, you will eventually experience physically. This is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And the moment you truly understand this, you stop rushing, you stop doubting, you stop looking outside for confirmation, because you know that what you are building within is already real. And in time, it will become visible, because persistence in feeling is not just part of the process, it is the process.